Good morning, everyone. I just want to talk through a few things related to Module 1 as you prepare to wrap up this module and as you prepare for the quiz. So I just have a few things, kind of high points I would like for us to discuss before we move ahead. So the first thing I want you to realize is that the population of the United States and the population of the world is getting older. By 2050, the population of those over the age of 60 is predicted to exceed the population of those under the age of 15. So think about that for a minute. For the first time in recorded history, the population as a whole is going to be older rather than younger. So that's really going to change what nursing looks like in the future. It's going to change what it looks like for you guys, especially as you prepare to take care of the aging population. We're going to have a greater percentage of our population that fits into that category. Also, you need to be thinking about what the definition of health is. Remember that the definition of health is there are a lot of factors that go into how somebody defines their health. It's influenced by culture. It's influenced by the point they are on their lifespan. For instance, me as a 41-year-old, I look at health a lot differently than somebody who's 21 would or somebody who is 75 would. It depends on your point on the lifespan as to how you define health as well. In wellness, when we think about wellness as a whole, it includes a balance. It includes a balance of your physical, your psychological, your spiritual, your emotional, your spiritual health. So when somebody is talking about their wellness, they're thinking about a wide range of things that fit into that. We also need to remember Maslow's hierarchy. So what do you remember about Maslow's hierarchy? Remember that at the very bottom are the basic needs of food, water, safety, and security. And then we move up the chain. As you meet those needs on the lower rungs, you can move up. So be thinking about that when we're thinking about the older population and what their needs are going to be, what's going to be important to them, what becomes even more important as they continue to get older. Those things are going to change, and we need to be sensitive to that, and we need to remember that as we think about caring for the older population. When we think about communities that are friendly to the older population, that are elder friendly, let's say, what do you think of? What do you think of when you think of a community that is friendly to the elderly? I think of those communities, especially ethnically, who take in their older adults, who take in the elderly, who make sure that they take care of their loved ones and don't send them off to a facility somewhere. So what does this look like? You have to make sure that basic needs are met, and whatever that means for that individual. Remember that the idea of wellness is very personal, and so what they see as their basic needs may be very different from what somebody else sees as their basic needs. But if you're thinking about an elder-friendly community, it's where those basic needs are being met and where physical health and well-being are optimized. So when we talked about wellness and what somebody thinks of as wellness, remember that's not just talking about physical needs. We're also thinking about spiritual, emotional, psychological, social needs that play into that as well. Maximizing independence is always going to be crucial. We need to really encourage independence. Just because somebody is 96 years old doesn't mean that we need to do all of their ADLs for them. It means that we need to assess and address exactly where they are and encourage independence as much as possible. Also, elder-friendly communities will include the social and civic engagement. So just because somebody is older does not mean that the social aspect of life needs to be cut out. We need to really be sensitive to make sure we're providing social interactions and also civic interactions. If you have somebody who's an older adult who is wanting to go vote in the newest mayoral election in Abilene, then you see that happens, to where you're advocating for the residents and your clients. So let's think for just a few minutes about what all of the different options are. There's lots and lots of options for caring for somebody as they begin to age. Shared housing is where, for example, I'm going to bring my mom into my home when she begins to age. Remember that that's not going to be feasible for all for all families, for all people. That's not going to be the best situation for all older adults. So we have to keep that in mind as we start thinking about shared housing. And also when you think about home health care, in order for somebody to receive home health care, they have to have a skilled nursing need. So just because somebody is older and needs help with their bath, that will not qualify them for home health. They would have to have a skilled medical need that required nursing care in order to receive those kinds of services. So it can actually be pretty limiting. And when you think about shared housing and bringing somebody into your home to care for, sometimes you do not have that many options besides doing it for yourself unless you have the resources to pay somebody to do that. Senior retirement communities are just those facilities, for example, where the older adult moves into a smaller house, a smaller housing situation, and then they have a golf community or they have something else. They have different activities within those communities that they can share with other older adults. Adult daycare centers are a very nice option for a lot of families. They provide care during the day. You take the older adult to the facility, they care for them during the day, and then they come home in the evenings with their family members. So this can be a great option for families who really want to care for their aging relatives, but they just still have to work. They still have other things that they need to do. So this can be a great option for them. Residential care facilities are like assisted living facilities. So if somebody is needing help with some of their ADLs, but they're still able to do quite a few things on their own, it can be a great option for them. And then we can move on to nursing homes if somebody really is needing more of that skilled care, around the clock care. So there's lots and lots of options for families, and we need to be really sensitive to helping them figure out what is going to be best for their family. What is best for one family might definitely not be what's best for another family. So let's talk about these transitions. Think about if you had lived in your home for 50 plus years and all of a sudden you're having to be moved to some sort of residential care, whether it's a assisted living or to a nursing home. Think about how hard that would be. So we really need to be sensitive to what we can do to help in that transition. What can we do to help assist in the transition for the patient and for the family, for the resident and for the family, to help make it as smooth as possible? So some things that are super important for us to remember are that the interdisciplinary team is crucial. You have to have social workers, you have to have nurses, you have to have all of the different pieces of the interdisciplinary team involved to help make sure that, those transitions are smooth. If you have had the opportunity to build a good relationship with your family, this is going to be a great time where you can use that quality communication and you can build on those relationships that you've already created to help answer their questions and to help smooth out that transition process for everybody involved. The comprehensive assessments are going to be crucial. Think about why that's going to be so important. If you are accepting somebody into a long-term care facility, you've got to make sure that they do not have any skin breakdown from head to toe. So those comprehensive assessments are going to be crucial. And of course, we talk about the way that we chart all the time, and those well-designed patient transfer records are going to be crucial when you're thinking about providing a smooth transition and quality of care. Of course, teaching the family, teaching the residents is going to be so important, and we're going to provide any educational materials we need to. So think about all of the things that you can do as a nurse to help aid in this transition process. There's a lot that we can do. Let's chat for just a minute about relocation stress syndrome. Again, it's going to go back to the fact that they are moving homes. They're having to move and change the way that they've lived their lives. So what can happen? They can definitely have physiological and psychological disturbances when they are transitioning between environments. Think about the way this can present physically and the way this can present emotionally. So physically, if you get anxious about something, you might have a little GI upset. Well, that's definitely the case for our older adults as well. They can have physical changes that go right along with this relocation stress syndrome, along with some anxiety and depression and insecurity. They may start lashing out because they're so distraught about everything that's going on. So we need to be sensitive to this, and we need to recognize when this is starting to happen. And some things that, of course, we can do is to help them recognize previous coping mechanisms that they've used and help them to utilize these as they're changing locations in where they are living. And we need to involve our residents as much as possible in their plan of care. Just because they're older doesn't mean that they don't have opinions and that they don't need to be included. And that will include spending time with our residents. Let's chat for just a minute about different ethnic differences. The population of the United States is rapidly becoming more diverse, and so that's going to directly play into the diversity of the aging population. So let's talk for just a few minutes about the African American population. More specifically, so remember that African Americans have a 40% more likely occurrence of hypertension. And what goes right along with that is heart disease. African American men are 30% more likely than non-Hispanic white men to die of heart disease. So think about that for just a minute. When you're caring for a resident who is African American, you need to think about the differences that can occur in them as they begin to age and be looking out for some of these changes that you might expect to occur. It's not just going to be in the African American population, but remember to be really sensitive with any of the ethnicities that you're taking care of, that you need to pay attention to what their health beliefs are, what their beliefs are related to health, what their beliefs are related to end-of-life decisions, food preferences and dress. These are all going to play a part in your nursing care for them. So you need to be very, very knowledgeable about their culture. And if you are not familiar with their culture, you need to become familiar. And you need to ask lots of questions of them and their families so we can make sure that we're providing the most cultural competent care that we can. We need to be really careful about stereotypes as well. Those can be really easy to fall into. And speaking of stereotypes, we need to come to terms with what we think of related to ageism. So if I walk into an older lady's room and I start calling her honey and sweetie and talking in some derogatory terms, that's ageism, and I've immediately placed my my stereotypes on her. So we need to be really careful about how we approach the elderly, how we speak to them, how we present ourselves. Also, and I have fallen into this trap where I immediately think they can't hear, so I talk loudly, and that's not necessarily going to be the case. So we need to be conscientious of that and to be really careful when we're speaking to our elderly clients. And the consequences, of course, can be lowered self-esteem. You're making them feel like they're not, don't have as much self-worth, and it can decrease their memory performance when they feel like they're being treated in a derogatory manner. Another box that I want you guys to pay attention to, and this is just as a refresher, is to go back and look at page 50, and it's box 4-4, and it talks about how to work with an interpreter. You guys have heard this information before, but definitely go back and refresh yourselves on that. So if you have any questions as we begin kind of wrapping up this module, please let me know. You can ask a question in the coffee house, or you can send me a message through Canvas. So thank you guys. I look forward to the rest of the course.